Now before we start developing our apps through Flutter, it is very important for us to understand some of the core concepts of Dart. So in this lesson, we'll be understanding what are functions in Dart, data types, variables, and so on. So I want you to navigate into this website dartpad.dev. It is an online editor for Dart code. It will make our testing easier. So now I want you to clear all the contents that are in your Dart pad so that we can start from the scratch. So now let's get started by understanding functions in Dart. So let me write a quick comment over here. So we'll be learning about functions in Dart first. Now if you are new to programming, anything that starts with double forward slashes is a comment. It does not execute in our code. It is solely for the purpose of making our code easier to read, right? So first we'll be learning about functions in Dart. So what are functions in Dart or any other programming language? Functions are the collection of logic. Everything that your app does, whether it be front end or back end, the functions contains the logic of your app. So how do you create a function in Dart? So if I want to create a function that adds two numbers, then this is how I create function in Dart. So I start by giving my function a name. So let my function name be adder. So this function will add two numbers and give me the result. So in function, the first thing is the function name. So our function name is adder, and then we will have in parenthesis. This is a function caller, or this is how you write in function. And then we have the curly braces, opening and closing curly braces. And inside of this is the function body. So first the function name, then the parenthesis, and then the curly braces, inside of which we will be writing the logic of our function. So inside of it, I'll be writing print. Now by this print statement, we can see the output in the console. So I want to add two numbers, so 2 plus 3, right? And everything in Dart will end with a semicolon. It does not apply to the function though, but in every part of the code, you will be seeing the semicolon that splits the line. Alright, so if I click at run, you will get an error over here, and the error says that there is no main method found. Now in Dart, the main entry point of function or executing any Dart code is the main functions. So I want you to create a main function over here. So the name of the function will be main, and then the parenthesis, and then inside of it will be the function body, right? Now let me copy this and then paste it over here. Now if I run this code, you can see that I get an output of 5. Now instead of directly printing this output in our main function, I want this main function to call this adder function, and this adder function will print this output. So what I can do is, how can I call another function, is I can simply write the function name and then the parenthesis. And this is how you call another function in Dart. Now if I click at run, then you can see I'll get the same output 5. If I replace it with 2, then I'll be getting the result 4. Now what is happening here is this Dart pad is executing this main function directly, and then this is calling our adder function, and then this adder function is executing on demand. Now this is a basic example of Dart functions. There are many more things that you can do with Dart function, and I'll be coming back to it later. For now, let's move to another core concept, that is variables in Dart. So how do you create variables in Dart, or what are variables actually? So if you look into this adder function, you can see that I have hard coded these numbers over here in our print function, right? So instead of doing so, it will be better if I create a variable and then add these two variables. So for creating a variable, let me write a quick comment, right? So how do you create a variable in Dart? So for creating a variable, you must start with the keyword var. Var meaning the variable. So var a equals to number 2. So we are assigning this 2 value to variable a. And let's create another variable. Variable b equals to 2. Now instead of hard coding this 2 plus 2 over here, I can simply replace this with a plus b. Now if I change this, and if I run this code, so you can see the results over here. And this time we are not adding the hard-coded values. Instead we are creating a variable and then adding these variables over here. A better approach for this is to create another variable called sum, in which we will be adding this a plus b variable, and then we will be sending this sum in our print statement. So if I run this, I'll be getting the same output, number 7 over here. But this time we are creating another variable and storing the value over here. Now if you look into our function adder, you can see that no matter how many times we call this adder from here, we will always get the same output. So what can be done to make our function a little bit dynamic? So now we'll be learning about passing arguments in functions. So let me show you how we can pass argument in function to make our function dynamic. So instead of hard coding these variables over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide arguments in the function inside this parenthesis. So a comma b. So I'll be removing this. So now as you can see here, I'm getting an error in our main function where we are calling this error function, and the error that we are facing is two positional argument expected by the error but found 0. So when we declare our arguments in this manner, we should provide the value of these arguments in the function that we are calling. So we should be writing what is the value of a and value of b in this function where we are trying to call this error function. So let me write 2, 4. Now if I run this function, then this 2 and 4 will be passed to a and b respectively, and then this sum will add these variables, and then the print will output our sum. So I get the result 6. Now there is a better way to pass argument into the function. Instead of just writing the variable name in the arguments, what we can do is we can surround it by curly braces. Now by doing so, whenever we'll call this function, we need to define the name of this variable as well. So a and colon the value, and then b colon the value. So by doing this, we can make our code more readable and then easier to maintain. And this is a basic example of how functions calling works in Dart. Obviously there is more to learn, and we'll be learning that eventually when our course proceeds. So I'll see you at the next lesson.